Meghan, thanks for having us on the show.
It's so awesome to be here. It's great.
When South Park aired an episode called The Worldwide Privacy Tour in February 2023, it looked like another brutal celebrity parody. A fictional prince and his wife arrive in a small mountain town saying they want privacy and seclusion. But the joke is that they keep making that demand in the loudest, most public way possible. They do not quietly disappear. They tour. They hold signs. They become a spectacle around the very thing they say they want to escape. And at the time, it was easy to dismiss the episode as one more South Park roast. Rude, exaggerated, maybe unfair, but memorable.
So let me start with you, Sam. You've lived a life with the royal family, you've had everything handed to you, but you say your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it in your new book, When.
Years later, it looks different. Not because the cartoon literally predicted every business headline that followed. That would be too easy, and it would not be accurate. The episode did not cause Spotify to end a partnership. It did not cause a lifestyle brand to stumble through a slow rollout. It did not make a trademark application receive an office action, and it did not force a rebrand. But it did something almost more damaging. It gave the public a frame. Once people had seen the Sussex brand through the joke of a privacy tour, every later story about media deals, brand resets, product teasers, and public image control seemed to fit neatly inside that frame. That is why the joke aged worse than expected, because the punchline stopped feeling like a one-night cartoon gag. It started looking like a warning about the brand problem Meghan Markle and Prince Harry would keep running into.
Yes, that's right, friend. You see, my wife and I
I
are...
was totally like, you should write a book because your family's like stupid, and then so are like journalists.
So you hate journalists. That's right. And now you wrote a book that reports on the lives of the royal family. Right. So you're a journalist.
The official South Park description is careful. It does not say Meghan Markle. It does not say Prince Harry. It simply says, the Prince of Canada and his wife try to find privacy and seclusion in a small mountain town. But entertainment press immediately understood the target. Deadline described the episode as appearing to roast Harry and Meghan, while also noting that the show stopped short of naming the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. That distinction matters for this story, because the safest way to talk about the episode is not to say, South Park named them and exposed them. It is to say the episode used fictional royal characters that were widely read as a Harry and Meghan satire. And the satire was not only about privacy, it was about branding. A couple trying to escape the machine, while also needing the machine. A public identity built around being misunderstood by the public. A media project built around the cost of media attention. That is a complicated contradiction. South Park made it simple enough to fit on a sign. And once a contradiction becomes that simple, it becomes very hard for a celebrity brand to outrun it.
Yeah.
Down with the monarchy. We deserve our privacy.
Now, there is one important correction before the video goes any further. A lazy version of this story would say Harry and Meghan left royal life because they demanded privacy, and then they chased attention. That is too blunt. It is also not careful enough. Newsweek noted at the time that a spokesperson for the couple had disputed the idea that privacy was the stated reason for stepping back, calling it a distorted tabloid narrative. So the stronger version is more precise. Critics saw a contradiction between privacy-related messaging and high-profile media monetization. That is the safe claim. That is also the more interesting claim, because the problem is not simply that Harry and Meghan appeared in public. Public figures appear in public. Celebrities sell books, launch podcasts, make documentaries, and build lifestyle brands. The problem is that the Sussex brand was trying to do all of that while also being framed around control, grievance, protection, and the cost of being watched. So every project carried two messages at once. Look at us. Stop looking at us like that. Support our story, but do not let the press define our story. That tension is not automatically hypocrisy, but it is difficult branding. And South Park turned that difficult branding into a joke the audience could instantly understand.
Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does fashion magazines? What are you suggesting? Well, I just think some people might say that your Instagram-loving wife actually doesn't want her privacy.
The timing made it sharper. The episode aired on February 15th, 2023. Just weeks earlier, Harry's memoir Spare had dominated headlines. Before that, there had been the Netflix docuseries. Before that, the Oprah interview had already become a major cultural moment. The Sussexes had become one of the most visible post-royal brands in the world. So when the cartoon couple in South Park toured around demanding privacy, the joke did not come out of nowhere. It compressed an existing public argument into one image. And the image was brutal because it was easy easy to repeat. A royal couple, a privacy tour, a brand manager, a public performance about not wanting public performance. That is why satire can be more dangerous than a news article. A news article can be corrected, updated, argued with. A joke becomes a label, and labels stick. Then, 4 months later, the Spotify chapter ended. In June 2023, Spotify and Archewell Audio publicly parted ways. The official wording was polite. According to reporting at the time, the two sides said they had mutually agreed to part ways and were proud of the series they made together. BBC reported that Spotify was not renewing Meghan's podcast Archetypes for a second season at Spotify. That detail matters because Archetypes was not a side hobby. It was part of the bigger post-royal commercial promise.
How dare you, sir? My Instagram-loving wife has always wanted her privacy. And you know what else? To hell with Canada. We are leaving. We'll go find some quiet place where we can be normal people. Come on, wife.
When Harry and Meghan stepped away from official royal duties, the public story was not just personal freedom, it was also financial independence, media power, and a new kind of global platform. The Spotify deal was one of the pillars of that. The idea was simple. Attention becomes audio. Audio becomes influence. Influence becomes a durable business. But at Spotify, Meghan's flagship podcast produced 1 season, 12 episodes. Then the partnership ended. Again, that does not prove the couple did anything wrong. It does not prove Spotify fired them because of South Park. It does not prove the entire Sussex media strategy collapsed overnight. But it did make the South Park joke feel less like a one-off roast and more like a useful shorthand for a question industry observers were already asking. Could the Sussex brand turn attention into repeatable output? Could the public curiosity become a sustainable content machine? Or was the attention itself doing too much of the work? That was the real issue, because visibility is powerful, but visibility is not a product. The Spotify split also changed the tone of the commentary around them. Mainstream and business outlets began discussing what the end of the deal meant for the Harry and Meghan brand. BBC Business covered the split in the context of Spotify pulling back from expensive celebrity podcasting. The Guardian reported that the end of the Spotify deal raised questions about the couple's wider brand and business prospects. Those are not official verdicts. They are commentary and analysis, but they show the direction of the conversation. Before, the Sussex brand could still be sold as potential podcast empire, potential production company, potential global platform. After Spotify, the question became output. What had actually been made? What had lasted? What could be repeated? And once the conversation moves from potential to delivery, celebrity brands become much harder to defend. The audience stops judging the promise. They start judging the receipts. That is exactly where South Park satire becomes uncomfortable. The cartoon joke was not about one failed product. It was about the gap between public performance and durable substance. And that gap is where celebrity media brands usually get exposed.
Oh, darling, I think this might be the place. You really think so? It's so quiet and empty here. If we moved here, then people would think we're really serious about wanting to be normal.
At the beginning, fame can create almost unlimited curiosity. People will click because the name is famous. They will listen once because the person has access. They will watch the first documentary because the private world feels newly visible. But after the first wave, curiosity becomes a harsher test. The audience starts asking what is left after the revelation. Is there a format? Is there a point of view that can repeat without becoming exhausting? Is there a product that would still make sense if the royal drama disappeared from the thumbnail? That is why the Spotify ending mattered beyond podcasting. It raised a bigger question about the business model. Was the Sussex brand building a media company, or was it still mainly monetizing the public's fascination with the Sussex story? Those are not the same thing. A story can produce a hit. A company has to produce again, and again, and again. That is the part a brutal cartoon can expose with one joke. It can take a complicated business problem and turn it into something viewers feel before they can fully explain it. Then came American Riviera Orchard. In March 2024, Meghan's lifestyle brand appeared publicly through social media, a website, and a waitlist-style launch. The aesthetic was soft and expensive-looking. The name sounded like Montecito Sunshine turned into a brand identity. There were signs of home goods, lifestyle, food, maybe preserves, maybe entertaining, maybe the next version of Meghan as a polished domestic tastemaker. And for a moment, the idea made sense. A lifestyle brand fits Meghan better than another grievance-driven media site. cycle. It moves the story away from royal conflict and toward aspiration. It gives her something to sell that is not just a reaction to the monarchy, the press, or the family drama. But then the rollout itself became the story. The public saw the Instagram tease, the website, the waitlist, the jam baskets sent to selected people, the posts, the speculation, the trademark talk. And once again, the product seemed almost secondary to the conversation around the product. That is not automatically a failure. Influencer seeding is normal. Soft launches are normal. Brand teasers are normal. But for Meghan, normal brand behavior does not land in a normal environment. Every move arrives under the shadow of the larger Sussex narrative. So a jar of jam does not stay a jar of jam. It becomes a referendum. Is this serious? Is this premium? Is this another reset? Is this the product that finally turns attention into a business? And that is when the South Park frame comes back. Because the brand is trying to sell something tangible, but the public is still reacting to the spectacle around the person selling it. By July 2024, Guardian columnist Arwa Mahadoui was writing about Harry and Meghan trying to escape what Rolling Stone had called their flop era. That phrase is commentary. It is not a legal finding. It is not a financial audit. But it is useful because it captures how the public conversation had hardened. The article noted that Meghan's lifestyle brand had not fully launched yet, while she was teasing offerings through fruit preserves. That is where the optics became bigger than the product. The jam was not just jam. It became a symbol of soft power, a symbol of reinvention, a symbol of delay, a symbol critics could mock before ordinary consumers had even been given a normal product experience. That is the danger of launching a brand when the public already has a storyline prepared for you. The storyline gets there before the product does. And if the storyline is stronger than the product has to fight uphill from the beginning. The trademark record added another layer. USPTO records show the American Riviera Orchard trademark application was filed on March 9, 2024, under serial number 98441826. The application later received a non-final action in August 2024. That wording matters. It is not accurate to simply say the trademark was denied, the way online commentary often does. A non-final action is an official trademark process hurdle. It means issues were raised that needed response. Then, in November 2024, records show an application extension to respond. By February 2025, Meghan had publicly reintroduced the lifestyle push as ever. And on March 1st, 2025, the American Riviera Orchard trademark application was expressly abandoned. That is the clean fact pattern. Field, soft launched, faced an official process hurdle. Extended, publicly reset under a different name. Expressly abandoned. That does not prove some dramatic collapse, but it does prove a messy brand arc. And for a public figure already fighting the perception that the brand is more optics than execution, messy arcs matter. They become evidence in the court of public opinion, not proof of wrongdoing. Proof of difficulty. Proof that turning attention into a clean consumer brand is harder than simply attracting attention. And this is where the ARO story becomes more than a trademark footnote. The problem was not only paperwork. Paperwork happens. Brands adjust names, lawyers respond to office actions, companies revise applications, and launches shift. In a normal startup story, that might be boring back-end administration. But Meghan's brand was not received like a normal startup. It was received like the next chapter in a public saga. So every operational detail became symbolic. A waitlist was not just a waitlist. It became a question about whether there was enough product behind the anticipation. A jam basket was not just influencer seeding. It became a joke about scarcity, status, and who was allowed into the circle. A trademark issue was not just a process hurdle. It became another headline about whether the rollout had been thought through. A rebrand to As Ever was not just a new name. It became another reset. That is the burden of launching under a microscope. The public does not separate the business plan from the biography. They judge both at once. This is the part South Park understood better than a lot of commentary at the time. The Sussex brand was never just selling content. It was selling a story about control. Control over image. Control over narrative. Control over how fame would be used after royal life. But the more a brand depends on public storytelling, the harder it becomes to control how the public reads the story. A Netflix series might be designed as personal truth. Some viewers will read it as overexposure. A memoir might be designed as healing. Some viewers will read it as monetized family conflict conflict. A podcast might be designed as thoughtful cultural conversation. Some viewers will read one season and ask why the larger deal did not continue. A lifestyle brand might be designed as elegant reinvention. Some viewers will see jam baskets, trademark issues, and a name change. That is the trap. The brand asks to be understood on its own terms. But celebrity audiences rarely grant that kind of control. They bring the old storyline with them. The receipts do not need to be inflated. They already tell the story. A satire landed. A major podcast partnership ended. A lifestyle brand was teased with enormous attention. The trademark path became messy. The public-facing name changed. And the same brand question kept returning. Can attention be converted into something stable, or does attention keep swallowing the thing being built? The most damaging part of the joke is that it reduced a complicated media strategy to one image, a couple holding signs about privacy while touring. That image is unfair in the way satire is often unfair. It leaves out nuance. It ignores some context. It does not care about charitable work, private boundaries, press abuse, or the difference between public life and personal intrusion. And those distinctions do matter. But satire does not win because it is balanced. Satire wins because it is sticky, and this one stuck. So when Spotify ended, people did not only see a podcast deal changing, they saw the privacy tour couple losing one pillar of the media empire. When American Riviera Orchard teased Jam before a full public rollout, people did not only see a soft launch, they saw another public performance around a brand still looking for a product. When the brand reset as ever, people did not only see a normal pivot, they saw the next attempt to escape the old frame. That is why the joke aged worse than expected. Not because it was perfectly fair, because it was durable. And durability is everything in celebrity branding. A bad headline fades. A bad lawsuit can be settled. A bad product can be replaced. But a bad frame follows you. For Meghan, the frame is not just former royal. It is not just actress turned duchess. It is not even just California lifestyle founder. The frame critics keep returning to is a public figure who wants to control attention while depending on attention. That is hard to beat because every public move can be read both ways. If she launches a product, critics say she wants attention. If she stays quiet, critics say the brand is stalled. If she gives interviews, critics say she is overexposed. If she uses selected influencers, critics say the rollout is too managed. If she rebrands, critics say it is another reset. That is not a normal brand environment. It is a trap built from fame, expectation, and old resentment. And South Park gave that trap a name before the business storyline fully unfolded. So what should the final verdict be? Not that South Park was morally right about everything. Not that Meghan and Harry have no legitimate complaints about media intrusion. Not that every Sussex project has failed. That would be too broad and it would ignore the parts of the story that are still active. Netflix remained a separate, continuing context. Meghan later signed a podcast deal with Lemonada Media, as ever became the public-facing identity for the lifestyle push. The story is not total disappearance. The story is reset after reset under a spotlight that turns every reset into a referendum. And that is the problem. For most celebrities, a product delay is just a product delay. For Meghan, it becomes a test of whether the entire post-royal brand is working. For most media companies, a podcast ending is a business adjustment. For Harry and Meghan, it becomes evidence in a larger argument about whether attention can be converted into lasting output. That is the cost of making the brand inseparable from the personal narrative. The audience is not only judging the project, they are judging the promise behind the project. Freedom, independence, authenticity, control, privacy, visibility. All of those ideas are tangled together now, and South Park saw the knot before many people wanted to admit how hard it would be to untangle. That is why the Meghan Markle joke aged worse than anyone expected. Not because a cartoon predicted the future, not because satire should be treated as reporting, and not because a TV episode caused business sitbacks. It aged worse because later headlines kept returning to the same contradiction. A public brand that wants control over attention still needs attention to survive. A commercial empire built on personal story still needs products strong enough to stand when the story gets tiring. And a celebrity who becomes a symbol of media overexposure has to work twice as hard to make the next launch feel like substance, not another round of optics. South Park did not need to predict the future. It just had to make the contradiction unforgettable. And once that happened, every later reset made the joke harder to escape. So the question is not simply whether South Park went too far. The better question is whether the parody captured the Sussex brand problem earlier than the brand itself did, because 2 years later, the punchline is no longer just a punchline. It is still following the brand.